Welcome back to the A2Z of Sales, and today's letter is the letter O. And for O, I've chosen the topic of objections, that nightmare for all salespeople. Whenever I talk to salespeople, the number one thing they want is, can you help me with my objections? And the first thing I find out is most people don't actually understand their own objections. They don't know what objections they get. They just know they get lots of them. So here's my first piece of advice for handling objections. Get yourself an A5 booklet and create an objections journal. And what you do on the left-hand side of the booklet, so you open up double page, the left-hand page, when you've finished a sales pitch, when you've finished a negotiation or whatever, and you've got an objection that you couldn't answer, the one that stopped you getting the sale or one you stumbled on when you were going through the process, write it down on the left-hand page as accurately as you can. And then research and think about, without the pressure of being in front of the customer, what would be the ideal answer to that objection? And write that on the right-hand page. Now, you might have more than one answer to an objection, but then you've got your objections on the left-hand page and you've got your answers on the right-hand page. And as you go through your career and you keep doing that, then all your key objections are going to be on the left-hand page and you'll have the right answers on the right-hand page. So before you go into a sales pitch, before you go into a meeting, before you go into a negotiation, you can quickly flick through that booklet and remind yourself of the answers. Very quickly, you'll become very adept at answering your key objections. That's my first piece of advice. In terms of the tactics or the strategy for how you would handle an objection, I want to give you 5 key points. The first piece of advice I can give you in handling an objection is to bypass it. Find a polite way not to answer it. So if somebody comes up with an objection, say, look, that's an interesting point, I've been asked that one before. Incidentally, did I tell you about, and used incidentally as a transition phrase to move you to a new topic? Or, yep, I hear exactly what you're saying. Oh, by the way, when we were talking earlier, or use by the way as a transition phrase to move you into another topic. So that gives the opportunity for the objection to land or not. If it's a real objection, it's going to come back at you. If it was just a conversation point, it might just disappear and you might not have to answer it. So test it first by bypassing it. If it does come back to you, then you're going to have to go for rule number 2. Okay? And rule number 2 is to clarify it, right? And to clarify it in your terms. So if the customer says that it's too much, then to clarify in your terms could be, so if I understand you correctly, what you're saying to me is you're unsure at this point of the return on investment. Or if you're selling something that requires let's take a car. If you're selling a car, no, it's too much. So if I understand what you're saying to me is, in order to buy the car today, you're asking me to reduce the monthly payment. So you're going to clarify it in your terms and then let the customer tell you exactly what it is they mean from their objection and open it up a bit more. That then leads to the third thing that you should do, and that's to isolate it. Now, if you've read my book, The Ultimate Knockout Closing System, you'll recognize this as a final objection close. And you isolate it when they've clarified it by saying, okay, so is that the only thing stopping us going ahead? Now, you get 2 answers to that. Either yes, it is, answer that objection and you're in. Or they might say, well, no, actually, I've also got concerns around this, and they'll give you a list of things, which is basically a shopping list of how to close the sale. Okay? But let's suppose they say to you, that's the only thing that's stopping us going ahead. Now, then you're in a position where you're going to have to answer that. Now, there are a number of strategies and techniques which we don't have time in this video to go through, but you could boast about it, you can feed it back to them, you can change the base, you compare it to something else, you can surround and outweigh it, you can reduce it to the ridiculous, you can put them in your shoes. There's lots of techniques that I don't have time to go through now, but if you look in my book, The Ultimate Knockout Closing System, you'll get those techniques. When you've answered your objection, then the final thing to do is to confirm it. And to confirm it, you use another technique called a tie down or a tag question. So having answered that question, I think that clears that up, doesn't it? So I'm sure that gives you more peace of mind in terms of the return on investment, doesn't it? So you'll now be able to see that the return on investment really covers the cost of the initial investment. doesn't it? So doesn't it, isn't it, can't you, shouldn't you, etc. Those tie downs, tag questions allow you to confirm that you've answered the objection. So there you go. That's a quick 5 minutes on handling objections. If you've got any objections that you're really struggling with, or you find yourself stuck anywhere, feel free, stick a note in the box below, and I'll do my best to help you out. Let's see what you think. Give me some feedback and I'll see if I can help. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers.